Okay, good afternoon, friends. So in the last two classes, we discussed about the soil fertility, tillage, weed control, cropping systems, etc. under the block 1. Now, the second block includes various methods of cultivation of various types of crops, which fall under what we call food crops, fiber crops, oil crops, cash crops, fruit crops, etc. So today we'll learn something about the important food crops, that is, crops which give us staple food. Under this, we try to learn about the rice, wheat, maize, sorghum, bajra, under cereals and millets. Then we'll also learn something about the pulses. Under pulses, green gram, black gram, red gram, and Bengal gram. We'll also learn something about the oil yielding crops, especially groundnut, castor, safflower, sunflower, etc. So we'll confine ourselves to know something about various methods of cultivation of these crops, when they are to be sown, what kind of plant protection mechanism one should follow, how to harvest them, how to clean the chaff from the field grains, and how to store them, and what are the various important factors that determine the crop yield, such as your weeds, pests, insects, etc., and how to control them. And what are the 3 seasons? Generally, we go for raising these crops. That is, what are Kharif, what are Rabi crops, what are summer crops, etc. So we'll start our today's learning from rice. Rice, as you know, it is the staple food for more than 60% of the world population. World's 2 biggest populous countries, that is China and India, where the staple food is rice. Of course, in northern India, people prefer wheat when compared to rice. But not only that, our neighboring countries, Pakistan, Bangladesh, your Indonesia, Japan, all these areas where the staple food is rice only. So that's why we can say with confidence that rice forms the staple food for more than 50% of the world population. Now coming to the history, it is supposed that it originated in Indian subcontinent, more particular in the northeastern region of India. Indochina region is said to be the place where this rice originated more than 5,000 years back, BC, not AD. So more than 5,000 years back only, people living in Asian countries, mostly South Asia and northern Southeast Asian countries, they had the knowledge of raising or growing these rice and how to protect this rice and how to use this rice as the staple food. Okay, we'll start, first of all, rice, as you know, rice, its scientific name is Oryza sativa, which falls under Poaceae or Graminae. Now rice, the economically important part is, our rice is nothing but what? It is the endosperm. Endosperm, which is rich in carbohydrates. Of course, when you mill it, you will be losing the proteinaceous alluron layer along with fat-rich layers. So the pure rice or the white rice, what we call, is full of carbohydrates only. When you mill it, when you go for 2 or 3 polishes, you are losing the precious material, especially the oil mineral-rich layer when you mill it. So that's why nowadays people are preferring, single polished rice. In good olden days, when all these, modern milling facilities were not there, people used to pound the rice. And they used to get this raw rice, which was very rich. Of course, taste will be a little different, but proteinaciously, or as far as nutrients are concerned, it was very rich in all nutrients. So now, coming to the areas, generally, China, of course, ranks first, followed by India, and even our neighbors do cultivate rice and grow large quantities. And because of, green revolution, because of using high yielding varieties, better irrigation facilities, we are now in a position to export even rice. We have achieved self-sufficiency in food grains. Credit goes to the development of, high yielding, short duration, short stature rice varieties because of the research undertaken by Norman Borlaug and thereafter M.S. Swaminathan and others. They have done excellent work. And because of that, nowadays we could achieve what we call self-sufficiency in food grains. Now coming to this Oryza sativa, of course, there are 2 cultivating species, important species. There is Oryza sativa and Oryza glaberrima. Of course, there are more than 27 species are there. Of the 27, only these 2 are popular across the world. Oryza sativa and Oryza glaberrima. Glaberrima, mostly it is grown in African continent. In Asian continent, the Oryza sativa is very, very popular. In Oryza sativa rice, there are more than 10,000 varieties. Of them, around 4,000 to 5,000 varieties are available in India at Central Rice Research Institute, Cuttack. Now, rice, or what we call paddy, the 2, major methods of cultivation. One is what we call upland cultivation, the other is lowland cultivation. Upland means dry cultivation, where it is solely dependent on monsoon. Whereas wet cultivation means where the irrigation facilities are available, maybe your canal water or tanks, borewells, wells. So whatever the means may be, if water is available, farmers can take up the cultivation of rice throughout the year. Now, the modern high-yielding varieties, they are photo-insensitive. They are not photosensitive. Our good olden traditional varieties, which are long duration type, they used to take more than 5 months or up to 6 months. They used to go very tall. Yield was little bit less. By crossing the short and long varieties, scientists produced many high-yielding varieties having the qualities of both traditional varieties and modern varieties. Now, this, of course, upland or dry cultivation solely depends on monsoon. Generally, it is grown. Sowing is being done in the month of June, maybe by spreading or by dibbling or by drillers. By following all these methods, generally sowing will be taken up. And before sowing, land, of course, will be prepared well by doing 2 or 3 plowings, then using blade harrow, leveling it, etc. So that seedling comes out easily, sprouting of the seed takes place easily. Now, regarding the wet cultivation, generally here in wet cultivation, generally a seed bed is prepared, watering is done, and farmer spreads, the quantity of the transplants he requires. He raises the seedlings, nursery, what we call. There is nursery. And it takes, 50, says almost 18 to 21 days nursery. By that time, it grows some 16 to 21 centimeters and has around at the 6th leaf stage. Now, the nursery plant is ready for transplantation. Before doing transplantation, here, farmer prepares it field, he plows it, levels it, uses cultivators, etc. Then he floods it with water and again undertakes cultivators and other implements that are used in wet cultivation, so that the entire soil becomes fresh, slippery. So it is this process what we call puddling. So by taking the various puddler equipments, he prepares his soil. Then by employing women, he takes up this transplantation. At each point, 2 or 3 seedlings are planted. Then before taking up this, generally farmer uses the fertilizers at his disposal. If it's a farmyard manure, he puts it well before taking up this plowing. If it's a puddling, then in the puddling, before transplantation, he gives first 1/3 of the nitrogenous fertilizer. He places them in an even fashion throughout the field. Then he takes up the transplantation. After doing transplantation, after a gap of around 20-25 days, then again, by the time, your transplanted seedling establishes, it establishes itself by giving out new roots, and even the stem, etc., comes up well. At that time, after 20 days or so, 20-25 days, he gives, second of the 1/3, second 1/3 he gives the nitrogenous fertilizers, and the third installment of this fertilizer will be added when the when the rice grows and it is ready to give panicles or inflorescences. When panicles or inflorescences are coming, at that time he gives the third installment of nitrogenous fertilizers. Of course, phosphorus and potash are added in the puddling stage itself. And of course, because he has done, too many times, he has used his plows, is blade harrows, cultivators, puddlers, etc., there is no scope for the weeds. Weeds are at their minimum. Of course, if now and then, if any weed which mimics your rice, that will be taken up, that will be pulled out, and thus farmer maintains his field. And the other thing is, rice, other peculiarity is, it is the semi-aquatic plant. There is no other crop, which grows in the stagnant water. It is the only crop. Has the ability to establish and grow in a stagnant water. So that's why it is known as aquatic or semi-aquatic plant. Generally, soils, coming to the soils, all types of soils. But mostly, except your block cotton soils, alluvial soils, your loam soils, silt soils, all are very good for raising your rice. And generally, there are certain times, especially soon after your transplantation, or when panicle arises, or when seed formation, when seeds are in milk stage, these are very sensitive for moisture. During that time, plant should not face any water deficiency. If you look after this, all the important requirements that are needed for this plant, certainly you can get a bumper crop. Now, regarding harvesting, just by looking at the field, we can say. So generally, green leaves, they start turning yellow, and your panicle, which is initially green, it slowly turns yellow. And when the moisture content of the seed or the paddy is around 18%, now then you have to start going for harvest. Of course, after doing harvest, generally nowadays, either you employ your cattle or your tractor or manually, you take this cut portion onto the flat area, threshing area, where by beating either on the ground or in a plank, you can separate the seed from the grass or the stems, straw, etc. Then you winnow it. Then you spread the seed in the sunlight for 3 to 4 days. By that time, the moisture contents comes down to around 12 to 14%. Now that is the time to stop or to bag the paddy into gunny bags and transport them to the areas where you want to store. Now this is about the methods of cultivation. Now, as far as exam is concerned, generally they will ask you about 3 important varieties. There are 3 important varieties in rice. One is what we call geographically, based on the geography. One is indica varieties, japonicas, and javanicas. Indicas are generally in the Indian subcontinent area, and generally plants are tall, late maturing, photosensitive, and prone for lodging, do not show much response to the fertilizer you add. And coming to the second category, of course, this is a tropical. Coming to the Japonicas, as the name indicates, mostly in and around Japan, these Javanicas are very popular. And when compared to Indicas, they are short and the stem is sturdy and non-lodging. And generally, leaves are very narrow. And of course, photoinsensitive. And, number of generally profuse tillering will be, of course, medium. Medium tillering is there. But of course, no dormancy. Dormancy is least, and they show good response for what we call fertilizer. Third category is what we call Javanicas. Generally, they are grown in Indonesia and other neighboring areas, which are tropical, which are very near to the equator. They show the characters which are in between your Indicas and Japonicas. They resemble Indicas in certain features and Javanicas in some other features. Of course, when compared to Indicas, they are a little bit short, profuse tillering will be there, and yield will also be good. And they too, like your Japonicas, photo insensitive, even good response to what we call fertilizer. But the only important category by which it differs both from Japonicas and Indicas is the grain is coarse and it has awns. Presence of awn and coarse grain are the two characters. Generally, people, where the rice is the staple food, generally they don't like this. Of course, African people, they are habituated to eat that. So this is about rice. So you have to remember what are, these Indicas, Japonicas and Javanicas. This is very, very important. And sometimes they'll ask you what we call the areas generally where it is grown. Now, areas in India along the coast, starting from your Assam, Bengal, down even Orissa, then comes Andhra, then Tamil Nadu. Of course, even on the coastal areas of your Karnataka also. It is not an exaggeration to say that across India, in every state, it is being grown. Now you'll be surprised, Punjab, a small state, it ranks first as far as the output of rice is concerned, where of course they grow wheat. But nowadays, because of high yield, because of the availability of the high yielding varieties and ability of the rice to grow throughout the year, now they have mastered it. Now they are ranking first. So what I mean to say is, across India, almost all the states, you find rice growing areas. And generally, coming to the soils, generally the alluvial soils. Alluvial soils are your loamy soils, are very good for the cultivation. Of course, if it is a sandy soil, if water is available, by adding, farm and manure, etc., even you can take up the rice cultivation there. So this is about the rice. Of course, rice has, so many high yielding varieties like Sureka, Falguna, Rasi, Kakatiya, etc. And of course, it suffers from what we call diseases like your bacterial blights, your, fungal diseases like, blast of rice is there, and fungal viral diseases, Tungro virus is there, and a good number of diseases and, insects like, gall midge, leaf roller, and brown plant hopper, etc., cause a lot of damage to the rice. So farmer has to take up the rice cultivation with a good plan, or else because he has to invest a lot. He has to use a lot of water, a lot of fertilizer, and it takes a lot of time and energy. So one should be well prepared before going for the cultivation of rice. Now, after rice, we will move to what we call the second important crop of India, that is your wheat. Now, wheat, it is the second most popular staple food of the world. After rice, 45 to 50% of the world population depends on wheat. Now, in wheat, generally, wheat is a rabi crop. Generally, wheat is grown across the world, of course, USA, USSR, Canada, China, India, even Mexico. It is also even in West Asian countries, wheat is grown, and wheat is a, it is a cold season crop or a rabi crop. It requires, chilly weather as such. The temperature should be below 20 degrees, 20 to at the most 20, 23. But rice, it grows well even 25 to 30, 35 degrees centigrade. Now, it is a rabi crop. And coming to India, mostly your North India is popular for this wheat and these in the Gangetic plains, their wheat is a popular crop. Of course, because of Bakra Nangal in Haryana, Punjab, Himachal, Western UP, Madhya Pradesh, almost all the areas, wheat is grown in larger areas. And as I told you, it is a rabi crop. Generally, you start growing it in the month of October. But of course, then the climate is a bit cool. Now, even it also needs 2 or 3 irrigations. 2, 3 irrigations are needed. When compared to rice, the requirement of water for wheat raising is much, much less. So here, wheat, very, very important staple food. And there are 3 important varieties, not varieties, species. To be more particular, 3 important species are grown across the world. Of course, in India, the 3 important varieties or species that are popular in Indian subcontinent are Triticum aestivum, Triticum dicoccum, Triticum durum. Triticum aestivum is a bread wheat, what we call, mostly for making your chapati. 80% or 87% of the wheat is grown by sowing Triticum aestivum species. So bread wheat it is. The second one is Triticum durum. Of course, this accounts for 12%, and mostly it is used in making what we call semia making. And Triticum dicoccum, it roughly accounts for 1%, and mostly generally for upma rava making. This dicoccum is popular. Now, coming to it's generally there are certain varieties where even 4 to 6 irrigations are needed generally, especially during crown, root initiation time, tillering time, then flowering and milk stage and duff stages. These are very sensitive for moisture. So plants should not suffer from moisture deficiency in those times. Now, the wheat, in wheat fields, generally, you come across what we call a mimic, which looks like your wheat, a grass, that is Phalaris minor. It is a weed, a robust weed, which you find in all the wheat growing areas. Now, wheat is affected by smut and rust. Smuts, your loose smut, covered smut, etc. are there. Ustilago, smut diseases, and of course, as you know, Puccinia, stem rust. Puccinia graminis variety Triticum causes rust disease in wheat. Now, we have to be very careful. We have to be very careful that these diseases do not infest your field. For this, you can do what we call, before sowing, you have to treat the seed treatment, especially with sulfur dust or with thiram, etc. If you treat your seed and if you sow them, generally, you can keep these rust and smuts at bay. Now, after wheat, we learn about the other important food crop, that is maize. Maize is what we call Hordeum Gia maize. Gia maize is the scientific name of maize. Family is, of course, Graminae or Poaceae family. Now, this is the other most important after, after rice, wheat, of course, sorghum. This is the fourth, to be more particular, fourth most important food crop that is being grown in India on a large scale. Of course, in world, generally, USA, USSR, Canada, Mexico, Russia, China, even India. These are the areas where this is grown on a large track. In India, it is mostly grown in Uttar Pradesh, of course, Madhya Pradesh, even Karnataka, parts of Tamil Nadu. In AP, of course, in Telangana, mostly northern Telangana, starting from your Adilabad, Nizamabad, Karimnagar, Khammam, Medak areas, the maize is grown on large tracts. Here, because the soils are very rich, of course, it needs, block soils, which can retain moisture for longer duration. Such soils are very good for raising your maize. And as far as the yield is concerned, when compared to other crops, highest per acre yield is available in maize. Even it is more than that, your rice, wheat, etc. Because, here you don't find any tiller. The stem is unbranched, of course. In the axil of each leaf, you get a head. From each plant, you get more than 6-7 heads. Butta, what we call. So because of that, high yield you can expect from raising maize. Now, based on the color, based on the shape, based on the size of the maize, there are 7 important groups or varieties of maize, what we call flint corn, dent corn, popcorn, sweet corn, soft corn, pod corn, waxy corn, etc., etc. Now, your soft corn, of course, for our flour, etc. Flint corn is there. Popcorn, seeds are small, and from that your popcorn is made. Of course, nowadays sweet corn is available, which you can have, raw or boiling in water by putting some salt also. It becomes tastier. And this maize, maize seeds are very rich in your vitamin D, especially D3. So that's why doctors advise you take maize, or see that maize is in your thali in some form or the other. Now, of course, it also infested by various rusts and smuts. Of course, our apart from that, even we have many downy mildews are also there, and Ustilago is there. Rust by Vaccinia sorghum, Ustilago medis is there. Viruses, even maize mosaic virus is also there. So these are some of the diseases caused by various fungal and bacterial and viral organisms. This is about the maize. Then we move to the next important staple food. Of course, we whatever the three, that is your rice, wheat, and maize fall under cereals. Of course, our sorghum falls under what we call a millet. Now, this is the most popular millet, which is eaten in India, mostly in South India. Of course, even in Rajasthan, even Madhya Pradesh, Western Uttar Pradesh, and of course, Maharashtra ranks first, followed by Karnataka. Then comes our, Telangana area, where this is grown on large scale. And after your rice and wheat, this is the third most important staple food. And not only it gives, food, but also good forage for the cattle. You get good quality fodder for the cattle from the sorghum. Now, sorghum, now varieties are available. You can grow them throughout the year. Multiple cropping can be taken up. The other most important feature of this sorghum is that the soils which are not suitable for rice, wheat, maize, in such soils which are poor when compared to fertility, in those soils also we can grow sorghum. Sorghum can withstand drought. Drought soils, having no water holding capacity, in those soils also we can grow the sorghum because it can withstand drought. Now, of course, nowadays we have nowadays this has become more and more popular. Generally people suffering from what we call diabetes, people who are obese, and people who suffer from constipation. Doctors advise you to take sorghum in the form of roti, or what we call by cooking the broken sorghum jowar also, you can make food that is very rich in, very good for these people, diabetes, obese, and constipation. Now, this is grown on large areas, especially the Karnataka and Maharashtra areas. There, people take this as their staple food. Of course, in good old days, before 1980s, even in Telangana areas, people used to take sorghum on large scale, but because of availability of irrigation, because of the new modern techniques, now people are slowly shifting from sorghum cultivation to rice cultivation. Now sorghum is not popular, and now sorghum or the jowar are available only in supermarkets, not in the market nowadays. But once upon a time, 30-40 years back, people used to take this jowar roti morning, afternoon, even in the evening. Very good for health. Now, this, it also, like others, suffers from what we call grain smut. Loose smut is there. Of course, Sphaerotheca sorghum. Covered smut, grain smut is there. Loose smut, Sphaerotheca cruenta is there. Puccinia purpurea, rust on the leaves. Even downy mildews are also Sclerospora sorghum is there. Ergot is Specilia sorghum, that is honey-like, sugary secretions you find oozing from the head. Now, of course, the other important thing is here, after the harvest, generally the harvesting is done leaving stubs of 30 centimeters or so. Now, if you water it, you can get another crop. This raising second crop from the stubs of the old crop is what we call retooning. This retooning is practiced mostly in sorghum and in what we call in sugarcane. Of course, we'll read about sugarcane tomorrow. Now, the other is, of course, your bajra is there, pearl millet, what we call. This is grown in areas which are drought prone, especially in Rajasthan area, Western Uttar Pradesh, and even in some areas of Mahbubnagar and Anantapur, areas where rainfall is very, very less. in those, and soils are not fertile, sandy soils. In those tracks also, you can take up what we call bajra or pearl millet. And as far as nutrition is concerned, it is equally good like your rice, wheat, and your sorghum, etc. It is equally good. And in some characters, it is far more better, especially your ragi is there nowadays. Ragi, Illicin, Korakana, ragi and your bajra, they are very rich in your calcium, phosphorus, iron, etc. So that's why now, day by day, even the government of India and other local governments are encouraging the farmers to go for grow these millets, because millets are very good for health. Okay. Now, after this, then we move to what we call, oil or pulse yielding. So in that, let us learn about, groundnut. Now, groundnut, as you know, Arachis hypogaea, a member of Fabaceae. Now, this does not belong to India. It came to India only, it was introduced by Portuguese people in 1700s. And generally, though it came a bit late to Indian soil, now we are proud to say that we ranked first in the production of groundnut in the world. Now in India, generally groundnut is grown mostly for its oil, as an oil yielding crop, and also for its kernel, that is for its seed. Seeds very rich in almost all the vitamins, good amount of protein, good amount of fats, vitamins, minerals are available. So that's why people prefer eating these kernels or the seeds either raw or roasted with salt and pepper, etc. Even from that, even you can make what we call sweets, that is by mixing your jaggery. Yes, you get what we call chikkis, which are very good, especially for all ages. This is a very good foods. Now they are available, even doctors also suggest you to take this, because people suffering from anemia, that is iron deficiency, even vitamin B deficiencies, they are advised to take this. Even they are as rich as your cashew nut. Now cashew nut, of course, is not available. It's costly. Everybody cannot afford it. But there are some fruits like, people say, if you take an apple, you keep the doctor a week away. But even your banana, all your seasonal fruits, they're no less as far as nutrition is concerned. So is the case with the groundnut, very rich, very nutritious. And of course, we grow mostly for its oil, and its oil content is around 45%, and its protein content is around 26% of protein you get from this. And generally, after extracting oil, whatever the cake you get, oil cake, that can be used as a feed for the cattle, milching cattle, and others. It can be added to the soil also. So, and this pulse, this groundnut, of course, it is both a pulse and also an oil yielder. Now this, you can grow throughout the year. You can raise them in Kharif, in Rabi, and also in summer, provided water facilities there. Of course, for Kharif, no water is needed. Rains are sufficient, 3-4 rains. Generally, it is whenever you speak of this groundnut, the state which ranks first is Gujarat. Gujarat is the state where which ranks first, of course. It is followed by even the Karnataka, even Andhra. Especially when you speak of Andhra and Telangana areas, um, especially Anantapur. In Anantapur, generally, it is grown on large tracts, even in Mahbubnagar areas, because the soils are very infertile, drought-prone, sandy. And the other important thing you have to bear, the heavy soils are not suitable for raising groundnut because the harvesting, the fruits are there inside, geocarpic, inside the soil. You have to pluck it out. If you grow them in block cotton soils, heavy soils, there is every possibility for the breaking. Your pots remain within the soil. So farmer will be put to great losses. If your soil is sandy, porous, very light, very easy to pluck. Even the penetration of this pod also, easily penetrates. And generally, there are two types of major types of these crops. Some are what we call bunchy type, and the other is what we call spreading. Bunchy means here you get all the parts together. The spreading means it crawls along the ground. From each node you get bunches of parts. Generally, bunchy type takes a bit longer duration for harvest, or it comes up for harvest 10 to 15 days later when compared to bunch type. Now, yields are very good now. Of course, here the farmer has to keep in mind, generally plant needs, or the groundnut needs a lot of, calcium, sulfur, and zinc. These three are very, very important elements that are needed. Now, for this, just farmer needs to add, gypsum. Gypsum is nothing but calcium sulfate. By supplying calcium sulfate, you're supplementing, you're enriching your soil with the calcium and also sulfur. So they are to be given. And if you give this to a field, it lasts for 3 to 4 years. You need not give year after every year. 3 to 4 years, it is sufficient. So generally, in the areas, drought-poor areas, generally this crop is taken. Of course, nowadays, it's cost, too much cost. Though your yield is less, because of remunerative prices, it is profitable to grow groundnut when compared to other crops. Now, here, one more thing you have to, as far as the exam is concerned, they'll ask you inoculation, types of inoculation that generally you take up in groundnut growing or sowing of groundnut seed. Before sowing, the seed, groundnut seed is subject to what we call inoculation. Here, inoculation is nothing but here nitrogen fixing bacteria. They are added. The nitrogen fixing bacteria containing cultures, peat cultures are available, and farmer buys them either from the agricultural stores or from the agricultural universities, and he mixes these cultures with the slurry he prepares by adding jaggery to the water, and to that he adds this, and after making a bit liquid, and he spreads his seed just before sowing, a week before taking up the sowing, and he sprinkles this solution on the seed, and it is kept under shade, in 2 to 3 days, it gets dried, and one should take that, the peel or the outer pinkish seed coat should not get disturbed. Now, this is the 3 types, of course, are there. Now, the trickle method is another method. Of course, Here, the liquid is put in drops behind the what we call seed driller. As the seed is sown, behind this, by using bamboos, which are hollow, this water is poured in drips. And this is what we call trickle method. So trickle method is another important method to do seed inoculation. Pellet method is there, slurry method is there, and the other is the trickle method. These are the three methods which are generally taken up by the farmer before sowing his seed. But of course, seed suffers from what we call caterpillar, hairy caterpillar, jaw seeds are there, thrips are there, your white flies are there. And even apart from that, the most important disease is what we call leaf spot. A leaf spot, Cercospora. Cercospora paxi, Cercospora personata, Cercospora arachidicola, and wilt. These are the two important diseases generally the groundnut generally gets infested with. Okay. Now, then we move to the other oil yielding crops, such as safflower and sunflower. Of course, safflower, this is nothing but your safflower oil. If you go to any shop, on the jar, you see heart, that is safflower, from safflower safflower, and is very rich in nutrients and also low cholesterol. So that's why generally doctors advise people suffering from heart diseases to go for this safflower oil. Very good for heart patients. Now, generally, this is a rabi crop, Carthamus tinctorius, its scientific name, a member of Asteraceae. Generally, either it is taken up in as an intercultivation, or a mixed cultivation. Of course, in some areas, sole cultivation, exclusive pure cultivation of this Carthamus is also taken. And generally, it is a rabi crop. It is taken up as a second crop in the moisture that is available after raising your first crop. Now, the other important is your sunflower. Of course, sunflower is in limelight nowadays because world's largest producers of sunflower are farmer USSR, that is Ukraine, Russia, Romania, Poland, even United States. These are some of the sunflower growing areas of the world. And because of this Russian-Ukrainian war, we India imports some 70% of its sunflower oil from Ukraine. Now, because of when the war broke out, our traders, they have started black marketing of this, and the prices have gone. Initially it was 10 days ago, it was just 130 rupees. Now it is 160, 50 to 60 rupees rise because of hoarding, because of the unfair practices done by traders. The consumers are put to great losses. Now it is the responsibility of the government to supervise this and see that the commodity reaches the consumers at a affordable or on any international price. So now sunflower, the sunflower, as you know, everybody is aware of the shape of that. It is sunflower, why it is known as, so generally it moves as the sun moves. Initially east, in the evenings it moves towards what we call west. This is what we call phototropic movement in response to light. Now this, when compared to other oil yielding crops, this is the crop, short duration variety and in all types of soils. throughout the year. You can raise this. You can grow in all types of soils. Even your chalk or dubba soils, sandy soils, in them also you can raise sunflower. It doesn't need, its requirements are very, very less. It comes up well in all types of soils and it's a quick growing. It comes to harvest within 60 to 70 days. Short duration and yields are very good. And here, like your safflower, even the cholesterol content is less here also. And the important thing, its scientific name, of course, Helianthus annuus, another member of Asteraceae. Now, here, it can be grown, as I told you, in Kharif. You can plant them in the month of June. It was Rabi in the month of October. It is summer. And now this is the time to sow them. And poor and drought-prone areas are also, in those areas also you can take up this raising sunflower. Of course, as far as the exam is concerned, they will ask you about the hand pollination in sunflower. Sunflower, you have an idea, I think. Different types of florets are there, disc florets, ray florets, etc. Center florets are disc florets, which are bisexual. The peripheral, or what we call ray florets, which are female. And because here, generally it prefers, the sunflower prefers cross-pollination. Generally, the pollinators are butterflies or bees, etc. Now, because of the indiscriminate use of your pesticides, etc., their population is going down day by day. So if that is the case, if there are no trees, there are no flowers, of course, this is available not throughout the year, So in such areas, because it needs cross-pollination, if these pollinators are not available, then the farmer has to take up what we call hand pollination. It involves, nothing. When the crop is in full blossom, flowers are there, then in the mornings or in the evenings, generally you go and you rub your palm on the flower, clock and anti-clockwise. Then you take your palm and do the same with other flower. So by doing that, what you are doing, you're transferring the pollen from one plant to the other, nothing but your cross-pollination. It has been proved that by doing this hand pollination, the seed set has gone up, yields have gone up remarkably. So this is about your, sunflower, safflower, groundnut. Finally, we will discuss about the pulses. Pulses, as you know, in syllabus we have black gram, you have green gram, you have red gram, and also Bengal gram. Now, first of all, we'll take up black gram, as you know, Phaseolus mungo, a member of all pulses are Fabaceae. Papilionaceae, Fabaceae is the family. Now, black gram, Phaseolus mungo, a member of Fabaceae. Now, there are two types of, black grams. Of course, the original one is black. Name itself tells you. But now we have varieties which are green also. And because they are very rich in proteins, and that's why generally in South India, when compared to North India, the consumption of this is large in South India, where the tiffin breakfasts are made of your black gram only, your idli, vada, your papad. All these are, in all them, your black gram is an important constituent. Now, not only that, your what we call sweets like sunnundal, they are made of from the flower of the black gram. Now, coming to the green gram, this is much more richer as far as the protein is concerned. Now, moong dal, nowadays they are available. Haldi Rams, very famous, your Moong. Moong dal is available. Very tasty and rich in proteins, and can be taken up both along with this black gram, green gram. They can be grown throughout the year. Of course, generally this is generally as a second crop. Soon after the harvest of your rice, in especially in deltaic soils, alluvial soils, like your Krishna and Godavari areas, Godavari, Krishna, Godavari districts, generally they grow rice in the crop, in the kharif. Now, before the harvest of the rice, they spread the either black gram or green gram in the soil, and then they go for harvesting. So by the time you harvest and you remove your rice, your seedlings of your green gram and black gram come, and within 60 days or so, by using whatever the moisture that is available, whatever the minerals that you have added, fertilizers you have added, the second crop takes up them and comes up very fast, and you get good yields. So like this, you can raise. Even if water is available, you can go for what we call even summer green gram and black gram. Of course, apart from this, even this is also grown, these two are grown as a green manure, wherein they are raised and they don't wait for the formation of your pots. They do what we call, they're mowed they're plowed into the soil and made to decay in the soil. Thereby, they add to the fertility of the soil. Of course, the coverage, because their foliage is spreading, even they check what we call soil erosion also. They are soil binders. They check soil erosion, and as a what we call green manure, they can be used. Even for their pulses, they are grown. Now then, third one is what we call red gram, of course. Red gram is your Kajanas Kajan. Of course, this is grown in UP, Madhya Pradesh, in South, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu. Of course, large tracts of the soil, this is being grown. But of course, though it is grown and produced on large scale in North India, but its consumption is very less in North India. Its consumption is more in South India. So generally, we prefer eating this arhar, or what we call red gram dal when compared to chana. Chana is very popular in North India. Now, in Telangana area, generally it is grown in large areas, large acreage, especially in Rangareddy or in Vikarabad, the Tandoor. In Vikarabad district, Tandoor is very famous for, it is a leading market for what we call the red gram is concerned. The pulse is because, of course, they are rich in proteins. They are taken as raw, and also seeds are there. They're sprouted, they're taken, salted, taken. Very good. Then coming to what we call chana, of course. Last one, that is Caesar Arietinum, a member of Fabaceae again. And generally, this is grown when compared to those three. Now, this is grown as a Caesar Arietinum or chana dal, Bengal gram, what we call. It is grown as a rabi crop. Mostly it is grown in North India, but of course in South India also, where black cotton soils are there. As a second crop, this is taken up, mainly grown in rabi. And of course, if you go to north, generally two types of are there. There were normal red or small size, and the white big ones are there, which we call what we call Kabuli chana, and normal traditional variety of chana is there. Of course, both are equally rich in proteins, very rich in proteins. Generally, North Indians prefer that. Apart from dal, now this is also used in various other ways, of course. Your what we call besan, flour, which is important for making all our spicy foods, your bhaji or mirchi bhaji, they contain this flour of this chana. Of course, even in making what we call our sweets, your bundi, etc., important constituent. Even your sunni pindi nowadays contains this flour, your green gram flour and other things are added. This is being used. So very rich in proteins. They are also very rich in proteins. Of course, this one, even not only for seeds, even the green leaves, just before you are flowering, whatever the green, green branches and leaves, they are plucked. And because they are very rich in what we call, they are rich in oxalic acid, malic acid, rich in oxalic acid and malic acid. And that has been proved to be to treat your digestive problems. Alimentary canal problems are treated by taking this malic acid and oxalic acid rich green leaves of Cicer aratinum or even Bengal gram. Of course, there are a good number of varieties are there. Of them, Jyoti is a popular variety which comes up well and it has the ability to withstand with, drought resistant is also there. Yield is very good and very popular and early maturing also. Yield is very good. And generally, it suffers from what we call a wilt and pod borer. Pod borers are there. Pod borers do a lot of damage. And wilt is also another major problem. It comes up well and on fine morning, if you look at, you see here and there, the entire, plant getting wilted, drying up. And in another couple of days or in a week's time, you see the entire, field turning yellow, getting dried up. It is because of what we call, though moisture is available, but because of the wilt. A fungus causes what we call wilt. It's because of this wilt, farmers suffer a lot of loss. So this is about what we call the food stuff. So we have learnt about the cereals, that is food crops, pulses we learned, and also oil yielding crops. So in tomorrow's class, we study about the cash crops or commercial crops. Especially we try to learn tomorrow in tomorrow's class about sugarcane, importance of sugarcane, planting methods, jaggery making, and cotton, important of the qualities of cotton, types of soils needed for cotton. And then, of course, if possible, we'll learn about turmeric, ginger, and also red pepper, that is mirchi. Then we'll also try to learn about fruit yielding crops, especially oranges, batais, then mangoes, and cashew nut. Okay, so if you have any doubt, you can raise your doubts. If no doubts, we will meet tomorrow, same time, and we'll try to complete whatever the portion that has been allotted under your elective, that is crop production. So if no query, let us call it a day. Let us stop. Okay, bye.